What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Heck versus Hell, where the truth we tell. Welcome back to every existing and new member to the Real Double Dose Syndicate, and of course to this wonderful segment, Heck versus Hell, all here to glorify God. Yes. All right. But thank you for tuning in another day, and thank you for the constant support. And that love is just always felt at so many places, so many downloads. Everybody who downloads, thank you very much, because it shows that you are actually taking a different type of initiative to also listen to it. Right? I understand that some people go and they actually listen to it really well, even if they don't download it. However, I just want to acknowledge that really quick because, it's is meant to be acknowledged. Everyone who listens to these episodes, everyone who's always constantly here supporting, commenting, giving different feedback, different comments, uh, reaching out to the email. If you don't have it, it's real double dose at channel@yandex.com or flip the switch at reborn.com. That's flip da switch at reborn.com. In case you need them for anything you may need to reach out for. But I just love the support and all the hearts, all the downloads, all the comments, the love, everything. And I'm glad that it can be taken in and it's not coming back void, right? Because God's word never comes back empty. So I just want to give that quick appreciation. But we're going to talk about this common culture. And this culture, it's actually a great conversation to go into right after we finish giving that appreciation and thank you. Once again, much love and so much thanks. But it's a perfect thing to go into because the hustle culture is a culture of the opposite. There is so much that goes on nowadays. Like, you just have to constantly be grinding. It is a non-stop grind. It's what they teach you. Everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. Everybody needs to work 2 jobs. Everybody needs to have a side gig that's making more money than their main job. Everybody needs to do X, Y, Z, da da da, whatever. There is so much pressure in, even now more than ever, in getting so much money with the amount of connection that is taking place all over the world with constant technological advances, and Web3. What is it? Web3, I believe, coming out soon or already came out. I don't know. I'm not too hip to all that. It's just going downhill even faster. And the necessity for chasing monetary things, monetary value, look at a certain type of way, and putting your value, associating a person's value with the worldly possessions that they have, is just growing more and more and more. And it is honestly just crazy. It's always been like that to a certain point because everybody that's always been famous, whether celebrities, singers, rappers, you know, rock stars, anything, movie actors, even presidents and stuff, it always came with some type of manner of them having something. There are very few people that didn't have that much money that were considered idols, right? And idolization, we know, is bad, but icons, that's the word I was looking for, is something where it's like they are in that position to where they carry that clout, right? As people know it, that clout. And Gandhi was one of the main ones. He was Gandhi. What's his name? Mandela. They were two really great ones that had that position, yet they weren't out here associating their value with these monetary possessions, with the amounts of money in their bank account, right? Maybe they didn't have big accounts at that time. Who knows? They might have carried cash. Whatever it is, okay? I know it wasn't too long ago, but still, some people just don't carry cash. All right. I mean, some people just don't do banks. All right. So don't get on to me on that. But it's such a big thing. And that's actually something that I started getting into. Whenever I came into walking with God, I was always in that kind of mindset of, hey, I gotta get money. Even at a young age, at 14 years old, I quit high school and I started working construction. And as at a kid that age, I was over here like, yeah, I'm making a boatload of money. I was making what, 700 to upwards of $1,000 a week, and I was still living with my mom. I was still doing all these other things. I didn't have that many responsibilities at that time either. So I'm like, this is a lot of money, and I was just spending it. And then 2 years later, I was still doing that. I did that up until I was like 18, but I just constantly did that and just constantly working, but I always spent it. I always spent it. I did not have the financial literacy to do it. However, once I came into God, because I was already doing different types of entrepreneurship before I came into knowing God. After I was born again, I still went on an entrepreneur route, which, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you starting your own business, with you going and doing something better and not just working a 9 to 5. Now, some people are called to do that. Some people that is the perfect position where they need to be. Some people, are made for that. You never know. Some people are made like that woman, the lady that was selling perfume, that she went and she used that expensive bottle of perfume on Christ. Like some people, that's their positions, that's their role, and that's the best place that they can be put to, one, handle everything that is going to be put in their life. Some people can't handle too much. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with a lot of growth and a lot of stewardship, and some people can only handle a certain amount. So in that position, they can handle enough, and they can also properly spread the joy and love of God. Money doesn't bring joy, of course. So in that position, without so much responsibility, you can still be happy. You can spread that happiness and joy properly without needing a boatload of money. You still doing what you do. Some people love being cashiers. If that's you, that's awesome. Because ultimately these are all moving pieces, just like the body of Christ. Even whenever it comes to uh, our our hairs on our body, my feet hair right here, they still play a purpose too. Even our nose hairs play a purpose as well to make sure we keep things out. Eyelashes, every single component plays a moving part. Now, the hustle culture, however, that is something that they put you in a mentality where you can never be satisfied. There is no satisfaction. Satisfaction? Is that right? Satisfaction. Anyways, satisfaction, I'll put it that way, 'cause I think that's how you say it actually. There is no satisfaction on what you achieve. There's never going to be enough. You always need more and more and more and more and more, and it's nonstop. And you just drive yourself to a point where even if you go and do start making billions of dollars, millions of dollars, you end up realizing that you're missing so much, or that you may have just gone and moved your life past, doing all that work, doing all these things, shooting for this achievement and leaving some type of legacy that isn't much of a legacy, because the legacy is in God, is in our breath, is in our life, is in our blood, is in our lineage. Some people, yeah, they create wealth and they pass it down to their children, but is it really a true legacy? Martin Luther King left a legacy. Mandela left a legacy. Gandhi left a legacy. Harriet Tubman, uh, Nate Turner, amazing legacies. that we would talk about over and over. Christ, King David, King Solomon, Abraham, Paul, Peter, amazing legacies. These are legacies. These are things that you can actually leave. And a lot of those things are working for the kingdom of heaven. See, it doesn't matter even the positions because even that lady that was selling perfumes, she still left a legacy. He said, "You will be written in the book, in the word, because you have done this." And it's those positions of faith that put us in that real legacy. Because we could think of different people, we could think of different situations, but there's so much people, like there's so much money out here and there's so many people making money. Like these aren't even really legacies. It's just a saturation of cookie cutter people. You know, hey, you got a Lambo, I got a Lambo. Hey, we got Lambos. You got a Lambo too. Everybody has a Lambo. Yay. But what are they doing? They're really not making a true impact, a true purposeful intention to be in this world. They could be doing one or two things where it's like, oh, well, I gave some money to charity, or hey, I donated or I created a little business to where it helps people in need. But it's like the true impact, the true advocacy, the true righteousness. You know who recently made that kind of impact? The 21. Watch the 21. It's a short film. It's about 21. I want to say, man, I can't remember where it's from. I need to look at it myself. I need to watch it myself. I want to say it's like a 20-minute short film. And who's that guy? Jonathan, I can't remember his last name. He's from The Chosen. I don't know if you guys have heard of The Chosen. Really good show. I watched the first season. Haven't watched the other ones, but I'm gonna get to it. Jonathan, the one that plays Christ, he directed this short film called 21, The 21. And it's about people in, I want to say, a Middle East country that were Christians and they did not deny the faith and they went down as martyrs. And there was another guy that was there, but he wasn't even a Christian. But he's like, I'm not denying the faith though, because now their God is my God. Because how firm they are willing to stand for him, even through all this torture and abuse, how much fear a normal person would have. No, their God is the one true living God. And that's something that they left an imprint on. Even the people just recently, what was it, about a month or two ago? Over, I want to say 7 people over in the Middle East, someplace in the Middle East. I can't remember where exactly. They had decapitated them. They took off their heads because they didn't want to deny the faith. And now it's becoming such a more stronger position. And that type of advocacy for Christ is where legacy can take place, which is ultimately one thing that the hustle culture wants you to do. They want you to continue doing because they associate the manner of doing as your being, as your identity. The more you do, the better of a person you are, the more iconic you are, the more impactful you are. That's not the case. That is far from it. Now, yes, it aligns with your character. What you do aligns with who you are. However, you cannot do things to become something. Well, I don't want to say that statement is completely true, but it's much deeper than what they see, and a lot of them, they don't even know what they're aiming for. They start off with little goals of just, I want to have financial freedom to be with my kids. That's good. That's cool. Yeah, you should definitely, spend time and appreciate the time that you have with the loved ones that you have. But and this is where I would go into it too, because that's one thing that I started looking at. I started looking at different avenues of making money. That's where ultimately I went into sales training, and I was like, all right, let's do this. Because one of the things that was promised was remote work, make your own hours, make a boatload of money. And I'm like, cool. If this can replace the income in the position that I have, awesome. And once I got in there, I was still very hyped about it. I was learning everything. I was so intent. I was just constantly wanting to know more. And I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn. I think I got a little good at it, but I didn't practice. I didn't continue to practice. I was like, the communication skills. That's what it really helped me with, because I sucked at talking. Uh, this is I don't want to say this is a result of that, but I did learn to be a little more confident. I'll put it that way in my speech. So it once I started really seeing it, once I really dived into it, I realized after a while, I'm like, this is just a luxurious rat race. I'm like, there is absolutely no difference in what we are doing here, constantly working, constantly going off, because that's one of the things that he would teach too. That guy that I signed up for, his course I signed up for, he was like, "Whoa, if you really want to get in, you really want to get to that position, you got to do more than the next person. I get up at 4 or 5 a.m. and do XYZ. By this time I'm doing this. I work all the way until 2 a.m. Start over again." It's like, well, what? You Now you're working harder than a 9 to 5. Now you have less time with your children. I'm like, how is this a step up? And literally the image of it is you go from a rat race, you look away. I feel like I've already said this analogy in a recent episode, but you look towards somewhere else and you see a bigger cage, a bigger wheel embezzled in diamonds, and you're like, I want that. And you end up getting transported over there, and then you realize the wheel is heavier and you're still chasing nothing. And now you have a bigger cage, but it's just that a cage is a cage no matter what. And you can ask our brothers and sisters behind the walls. A cage is a cage no matter how you put it, no matter how you paint it. It's how we perceive it and how we decide to utilize it that makes all the difference. They don't know that, and they don't understand that. That is something that is horribly and negatively influencing and impacting so many young people in this world, and they don't realize it. They don't realize it, and they won't realize it after they've gone by a little bit. Unfortunately, it's also happening to a lot of young women that are going to the point of risking it all for money, and even to where they're over here doing OnlyFans and exposing their body and giving away their sanctification to make a couple of bucks, and then later down the line it's a whole different perspective. Now that's all they're seen as. They've attached and brought themselves down to being sexualized and objectified to the point where now that is their identity to everyone else. And ultimately, that's how they view themselves as well. So they have torn down the image of God. Where's the value in that? Young men over here going and shooting each other for a couple $1,000s. There's literally people right here. I live in Texas, and there's people over here in this area that will go and kill another person, $5,000. Some people three. Depends where you're at. And they do it for their own glorification as well. But it's also because that is the idol on their hearts. The money. the more money you have. It's something that I was always around as well. Something that so many people and so much of the world really revolves around, right? That's one of the sayings, isn't it? The world revolves around money. Is that right? I think that's right. But it's a culture that needs to be deaded out. Entrepreneurship, that's different. If you're actually doing it with a purpose, that's different. I like watching Shark Tank. If you've never heard of Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, um, those are episodes that talk about or a show that talk about business, and these investors go and come together. Someone goes and they pitch their idea to them, try to get them to invest, and then it kind of goes like that. There's some people on there that are extremely passionate about what they do. There's a farmer on there. I know this guy follows Christ. I just know it. Maybe he doesn't do it to 100 and fullest extent of stewarding for God and spreading the word of God all the way, but I could tell he follows Christ. And he spoke about, it was a farmer that made certain tree things for farmers, and he sold it to farmers. And he didn't want to make a deal with the sharks. Well, he wanted to, but he didn't want them to put their hand into it to corrupt what he's doing, because ultimately they wanted to raise the prices on what they're doing. And that's really what the hustle culture is about, is just having a money centered mindset. And it's rotting. It's really rotten. I want you to be able to pay attention to that and advocate against it. Do something to not only wake yourself up, to take that idol off your chair, but also to help understand people and those around you. Their identity doesn't lie in fake paper that fluctuates up and down, because your character and your identity should never fluctuate. It can change, but it should never fluctuate. I love you all. I hope you have a blessed one. I will see you on the next episode, and I will catch you on the flip side.